Hi, Michelle here from Your Productivity Pulse. Several months ago, I had the crazy idea to start my own podcast, and I had an opportunity to attend Kim's free workshop on how to build a podcast, what you need to do, and some different ideas that you could just to get started. Well, after that, it really sparked some ideas for me, so I reached out to her and booked a one-to-one appointment just to have a conversation about whether or not it was going to be the right thing for me to start building a podcast. Well, after that 1 hour, I knew that it wasn't just the right thing, but it was what I needed to do like right then. So we talked it over, and from there, I booked in the next part of her program, which was a 14-day intensive where she was helping me through step by step everything that I needed to do to get my podcast up and running. It was an amazing process, and I can't say enough about everything that she did to help me through, from tech challenges to reviewing content to giving me the encouragement when I needed to. I thank you so much, Kim, and I'm so excited to see what's going to happen next with my podcast and yours. Thanks so much, Kim.
Most of my episodes, I'm teaching you something. I'm giving you the tips, the frameworks, the how-tos. And today I am going to continue that trend, but I'm also going to flip the script and show you exactly what that is. My name is Kim Parkinson. You're listening to Podcasting for Your Spiritual Business. And today I'm going to tell you more about a style of episode. And that style today is the CTA style episode. And I want to also mention, why does this style of episode matter? And you might even be thinking, there are styles of episodes? I have no idea. So a CTA episode, or call to action, if you're not sure what a CTA is an episode type that you can have in your rotation. You normally would have episode types where maybe you teach, maybe you tell stories, you share resources, and you answer questions. I've done all sorts of types. And these are usually solo episodes, but can be done co-hosted as well. So just so you know, if you have a solo or co-hosted podcast, these are all episode types you can do for that. So again, we have the teach, the story, the resources, the answer questions, and then you have the CTA episode. And that CTA episode is where you put it all out on the table. You say, here's what I do, here's who I do it for, and here is how you take the next steps with me to do it. Now, people may love you and they may still not be hiring you because they don't know. They don't know that you're taking on more clients. They don't know how to bridge that gap. They don't know that you are actually, maybe they don't even know that you're actually in business, right? They know that you run a podcast. They know that maybe you have an offer here or there, but maybe they don't realize that that offer is open. So that CTA episode is going to fix that. And it's going to explain a little bit more about what it is that you do. And it is going to tell them exactly how they can reach out to you. It's not typically a salesy type of a episode. It's definitely a service, right? It's going to serve them and hopefully serve you and your bottom line. Let me also mention, women, we do not tell people often enough that we are available for hire. We just automatically assume that people know that, hey, we are here. I'm putting out a podcast every week. Go ahead, reach out to me. But sometimes we don't even put a call to action in our episode. So if we don't put a call to action to just join our newsletter in our episode, how do people know that we are actually available for people to hire us unless we do that in an episode? So you can have multiple different CTA style episodes throughout the year, and you can do this for different points, different offers, right? So you can do this for your newsletter. You can just have one blanket one for your newsletter. If you have nothing else to offer right now and you're like, yeah, I want to give this a shot, you can go ahead and just do one for your newsletter and be like, you know what? I'd love to bulk up my newsletter. Let's see if we can get a couple more people on there. Go ahead and create a CTA episode that is just sending people to sign up for your newsletter. Or maybe you have a program that you're going to be launching or a coaching package. Maybe you just have a freebie that you want to offer. Maybe you have like a meditation or an affirmation and you just want to tell people about it and you want to explain and go deeper and explain why they need that. That is going to be a CTA style episode. So I would definitely just pick one. I wouldn't send them to, like you can maybe send them to multiple different places, but I wouldn't give them multiple CTAs per episode. I explained this recently in my 4 and 40 workshop. I've run this workshop a couple of times. I run it a couple times during the year. The next one's probably going to be in July. So make sure that you listen for that. I will put the link for that in the show notes, but that's not my CTA for this episode. So I don't want to confuse you with that. But this is just that bonus round in the 4 and 40 workshop. After I ran the workshop a couple weeks ago, I had a client reach out and say, I needed more information about what that is, what that looked like. And so this is what that is. I did meet with her. We did have a discussion about it, but this is me putting that into practice, me putting my money where my mouth is type of thing, right? So I'm going to be doing my CTA episode. What I'm going to talk about today is something regarding my business. I kind of gave you a little bit of idea of what a CTA episode is, and now I'm going to go right into my CTA episode. So, gave you a little suggestion on how to do that, and now let's put it into practice. There are 2 podcast growth seasons per year, January through the end of May, beginning of June. So we're just at the end of that. And then there is September through the middle to end of November, somewhere around there. And right now, as you're listening to this, we're headed into summer. And a lot of times, listeners are going to go to the beach, they're changing their routines, and the download numbers can dip. And you know what happens when the download numbers dip? That's when I get an influx of people saying, "Hey, my download numbers dipped. Oh my goodness, what is going on?" And typically, again, it is podcast season has just kind of, people have changed. There's no routine, right? People aren't in a specific routine typically in the summer. And then their routine is very disrupted in the month of December with all of the holidays. So I know that my busy season starts probably July and goes into August. And then I have other busy seasons. I have one typically in February and April, but July and August historically have been my busiest time of year for, crazy enough, both my businesses. When I owned my craft store, August was the busiest time of year. And same with this business. Maybe it's just my energy. I just attract everybody in July and August. That's possible. But what I want you to know is that July and August are almost here. And that means that I could be fully booked. And I want you to get a jump on this if you are at all interested. What I do is I help podcasters launch and grow their podcasts. So maybe you haven't launched and you're listening to this and you're like, you know what? I haven't decided if I'm going to yet, but maybe this fall sounds like a good time. Then I suggest that you reach out to me so we can start to have that conversation. If you have already launched your podcast and you're not calling in clients are not coming into your world from your podcast, then now is a really great time to reach out to me so that we can kind of take a look at your numbers and see where you need to go. So launching, growing, that's where we want to go. You don't want to be scrambling in August going, podcast growth season is September and I'm not quite ready. And let me also give you, so even though we say the growth season is in September, I say that because I'm here in New England and the kids go back to school in September. But if you live in an area where the kids go back to school a little bit earlier, and I know that happens in the South quite a bit, then the podcast growth season is actually moved up a couple weeks for your general vicinity. And if a lot of your clients come from those areas, then you might be considering that your podcast growth season actually starts maybe late August rather than in September. So just keep that in mind as well. Summer is actually really the best time to be looking under the hood, so to speak. I want to go with my husband's acronyms here with his auto mechanic. And you want to look at like your title, your keywords, your descriptions, your CTAs, your categories, your content strategy, all of it. And that's what I do when I coach people, when I go into strategy and I teach them how to just get more organic discoverability and maybe effort based discoverability on your podcast. Sometimes people, it just takes just one or two little tweaks, and people will actually be able to find your podcast a little bit easier just based on some simple keywords. So, if you are launching a podcast and you've been sitting on this idea, maybe you've been sitting on it for a couple of months, the September growth season is your target. So, starting now, if you are ready, now means that by late August, you'll be confident and consistent and ready for that wave of new listeners coming back to their routines. That means that we can launch your podcast, even if it is during the summer. You then will feel a lot more confident in what you're saying. It's always those first, I want to say, honestly, going to say, maybe this is why people pod fade. That first 8 episodes, those are probably like some of the hardest episodes to record because you're kind of just getting your groove. You're kind of just trying to figure it out. Maybe you have an avatar of somebody that you're thinking of, or maybe you don't. You don't really have the feedback yet for people to say, let's talk about this. They have a question about that. And so those first 8 episodes are kind of clunky. Like if you go back all the way back to my very first episode that I published last June of 2025, you'll see that my first episode is absolutely named not keyword specific at all, but I left it that because it really is the hardest episode you'll ever make. That first one is the hardest one. It just is. So go ahead, go back and listen to that. You'll hear my voice. You'll hear my voice waver. You'll hear me kind of maybe like taking some shifts. It's just how it is when you first get started. And then honestly, by about episode 8, you kind of get that groove. You kind of are like, yeah, I understand that. So if you start your podcast, you're thinking about podcast launching and you start launching maybe in July or, even in August, by the time September gets here, you'll at least have a little bit of a better cadence. You'll understand your setup more. You'll understand how you're speaking to people more. And then there is something about that repetition that will just also remind you to talk about your own CTA inside of each episode organically. Make sure you join my newsletter, KP Creative Media /newsletter, and you'll get an email every week from me that gives you some tips and tricks, something like that, right? So if you are already publishing, you already have a podcast and you've been putting out episodes and you're looking at your stats and you're saying, is this actually working? Is this moving the needle? Am I actually seeing clients from this? And maybe your downloads have kind of plateaued. Maybe you've never done a proper CTA episode, or maybe you just never done a CTA. Maybe maybe it's possible. Some people, I listen to podcasts and they're like, they never ever mention how people can work with them. And maybe you're not sure that your titles are working for you. Maybe you're kind of thinking you're going to pod fade and you're losing that zest for your podcast. I have a little testimonial that I'm going to read here. This is from someone that took my 4 in 40 workshop. And she's been a client before and she's a current client now. And she wrote to me and said, whenever we meet, I feel like I get these little super boosts of confidence. They are bite sized and perfect for being able to implement the learning. How cool is that, right? So if she's saying this with just a little call with me, then maybe that's just what you need. You just need a little bit of me in your corner to give you that additional boost, that additional, let's get going. Let's try this. Let's move forward with this. What does coaching with me look like? So typically I meet with clients either weekly or biweekly. And biweekly, I mean every other. I have to be specific about that because that actually came up more recently as well. Do we do biweekly? Is biweekly twice a week or is it every other week? If you know the answer to that, I probably could Google it. I probably could ask AI. But yeah, it's either weekly or every other week coaching packages, depending on where you are and what you need. And then what we look at together is your podcast name, your keywords, your episode titles, your descriptions, your CTAs, your content strategy, your stats, your categories, your launch plan if you're starting fresh, if you want to relaunch your podcast. Or maybe you need a rebrand on your podcast. We look at all of that. And then it really just starts with an email conversation, just a back and forth. So I get to know a little bit about you and a little bit about your show. I do have a form that you can fill out, and that is at kpcreativemedia.com/vision. And you can fill that out if you want to get started and you want me to reach out to you. That's fine too. I'm happy to do that. But typically, it's just a little conversation that we get started. I just need to know a little bit about your podcast, a little bit about what you offer, and then I need to know how often you would like to record. And then I go and do some research. I do some research, I look you up, and I listen to some episodes, and I show up prepared, and I let you know what it is that I think that we could do to kind of move that needle. I have a strategy session that I do, and then we can move into whatever, maybe, whatever kind of suits you based on what you need, because no two clients are the same. Your podcast needs something different from the person sitting next to you. It's just, I just work with your voice. I work with your business, and I work with what your listeners need from you. For instance, more recently, I had some coaching clients, and immediately upon us starting, I found out that one of the co hosts had a speaking engagement. And so immediately we shifted gears so that we had something that she could record right away and offer during that speaking engagement. She needed that right away, and she needed that for some authority so that when she was up there on the speaking stage, she had an episode to send people back to. Because if they go back, they listen. If they listen, they follow. They follow, they listen more, they like you, they know you, they trust you, they continue, all of that, right? So it works. And I like to tailor what I do to what it is that your circumstances are needing at this time. That's where I start, and that's where we go. Let me also mention that a lot of times what I have found is that if you are an avid listener of this podcast, you may not realize that I am open and available for business, that I am always looking for new clients, that I am sitting here putting out my authority, putting out my tips, my tricks, and all of that that you can listen to and certainly you can implement. But if you are ever finding yourself struggling, that's when I want you to reach out. I never want you to struggle with your podcast. I never want you to give up because people aren't coming into your world through what you are teaching. I never want you to say, I don't have any idea what's going on, why other people seem to be saying they're making money at a podcast, and I'm not even calling in anybody. That is when I really invite you to reach out to me and let's get that conversation going. And you can do that just by emailing me, kim@kpcreativemedia.com, or you can fill out the form at kpcreativemedia.com/vision, and I will contact you. And we will have that little conversation between the two of us on what it is that you need specifically from your business. Because again, no two podcasts are alike, no two hosts are alike. Everybody needs something different. And so while all my approaches for coaching are very similar, I do tailor them and move things around as you need them. So I am currently taking on new clients specifically to get shows ready for September through the November growth season. Spots are limited and I show fully for everyone. So, not only do we have maybe weekly or every other week calls, but usually you have some type of instant access to me. That's usually either in the DMs or in Voxer. I use Voxer quite a bit with my clients. And while, yes, I'm not available 24/7, I will get back to you with your answer or whatever it is that you need. And we just kind of work together and make sure that you are growing your show. You are calling in those aligned clients and you are making it the best that you possibly can. Don't forget, this is a CTA style episode. So my call to action in this episode is email me directly, kim@kpcreativemedia.com, or you can go ahead and fill out the form. And I'm going to put that form in the show notes or the link to that form in the show notes. It's kpcreativemedia.com/vision. And all you need to do is let me know that you heard this episode and you'd like to just have a conversation with me. It starts with a conversation, starts with a connection, and it moves forward from there. So, this is a call to action episode. I hope I did it justice so that you can understand what a call to action is. It's kind of just explaining. It's explaining what we do. It's explaining how you will do it. And it's a service. It's a service to your listeners. It's a service to other people that need you. And I think if you haven't created a CTA episode, might be time to do so. If you're listening to this and you know that there's someone in your world that may need this episode, maybe they need to create a CTA episode, they need to understand what one is, or maybe they are ready to move forward with their podcast idea, then I invite you to share this episode with them so that they can also learn what a CTA episode is and also maybe get into my world so that their voice will be heard. Your voice matters, your show matters, and the right season to grow is almost here and it's time to get started. It really is. And I would love to be in your corner for that. So don't forget, where your voice flows, your business grows. And this is Kim Parkinson with Podcasting for Your Spiritual Business. Talk to you soon.